Welcome to another episode of Capacity. Today we have Scott and Courtney Johnson from Johnson Metalworks in Bozeman, Montana. What does your business do?
So we're a specialty subcontractor. We do a lot of work in architectural, residential, and commercial markets. We do structural fabrication and erection and industrial manufacturing.
I'd love to hear your story. Tell me about your business, how you got started. Take me on the journey.
So 2011, I had a job offer in Asheville, North Carolina. We're both graduated from school at MSU, and I have a civil engineering degree. Courtney has a master's in architecture. And I'm making $8 an hour, pulling nails out of old barnwood with an engineering degree, kind of rethinking my life choices. And I have a job offer in North Carolina, and Courtney has a legitimate architecture job offer in Sacramento. And we flipped a coin, wind up in Sacramento. And
Was it heads or tails?
Heads.
I don't remember.
It was heads.
Yep.
And I had done some engineering internships along the way and knew I didn't want to do that. You know, stuck behind a computer all day long and just mind-numbingly boring for me. I tinker, I fiddle, I fidget. I don't do well in that kind of environment. So we wind up in Sacramento, and I get a job offer for a high-end custom stainless shop, you know, commercial kitchen equipment and countertops and sinks and hoods and that kind of stuff as a detailer. And I found I really enjoyed it for the first 6 months, maybe a year. I'm thinking, okay, it's a job, it's a paycheck. You know, I have a water engineering hydraulics degree. And here we are in Sacramento with the DWR, and you know, this is Mecca for a water engineer. And I'm thinking I'll just do this for a little while and then get an engineering job, get a big boy job. And I'm out golfing one day, and on the turn, I get paired up with a couple of engineers from the Department of Water Resources. And you know, this is Bob, the hiring manager of the levee division, and this is Bill, the hiring manager of the, you know, open conduit division. And I'm like, all right, the gods have smiled upon me. I'm going to walk off the 18th green with a job offer. And that didn't happen. I walked off the 18th green and they had me convinced, like, you don't want to do this. You're young, you're passionate, you like your job. You don't want to come work at the DWR. You don't want to come work as an engineer for the state or the city. You don't want to do this. And I feel like it kind of, that in my head, that was the turning point where that should do, right? I got an engineering degree. I should go get a job as an engineer, but I don't want to. I don't like this. So why do it? I enjoy what I'm doing right now. I'm working in a metal shop, and I really like being a part of seeing the product come to life. Something I draw, something I design. I can go watch it get cut on the laser. I can watch it, you know, go through the break. I can watch it get welded up. I can be a part of the install. I can see product that I helped to create come to fruition. And I really enjoyed that. And I feel like for me, that was the start point of getting into metal fabrication. So I worked there for 4 years and then got a job offer. One of our vendors was a substantially larger shop, had more equipment. We used their laser a lot to make some of our parts. And he reached out to see if I wanted to interview for shop manager. So 28, I take a job as a shop manager for a $40 million a year job shop, you know, 60,000 square foot at the time. They had the world or the West Coast's largest tube laser and bunch of flat lasers and brakes and, you know, big burn table. And I'd come home and I'd tell Courtney, like, I work in the world's biggest big boy toy box and I love it. We're doing large structural, large industrial manufacturing, we made sky bridges for Google going between their San Mateo sky rises and, you know, really fun projects. My boss was a couple years older than I was, and we thought very similar, very aggressive approach style. If we think we can do it, let's try it. Jump in. If it's equipment, if it's material, if it's trucks, whatever it is, if we can fund an opportunity to compete, let's jump in and do it.
Were there any big differences that you noticed from going from a smaller shop to a bigger shop? Things that made sense or didn't make sense that surprised you?
This is like what Courtney was talking about with the mentors. Both of the owners at this company, both companies were polar opposites in personality. Ken Hamill, the owner of Capital Sheet Metal, was second generation, tail end of his career, but a unbelievable human being, incredibly empathetic, took care of his employees, cared. You could tell he cared. He was passionate, but the business had been around since the 50s. His dad started it. The building they were in was paid off, maybe a 6,000, 7,000 square foot shop. No desire to grow, no desire to expand. Oh, we do our $3.25 to $3.5 million a year. We're comfortable. We're stable. Everybody gets a good paycheck. Why?
He was the newest guy in the shop.
Up?
I think in the shop, the new guy had been there 7 years. I mean, it was...
Yeah. When I started, I was obviously the new guy. When I quit 4 or 5 years later, I was still the new guy. Incredibly low turnover, but he took great care of his people. When I interviewed there, met with him and a couple of other people in management. And after I talked to them, I was like, can I go talk with the guys on the floor, the brake operator and the shear operator? I want to ask them what it's like to work here. And I got into the shop, and Vladimir Lyshek, the Ukrainian shear operator, like, hey, how do you like it here? And he goes, they buy coffee every week. It's great. It's like, really? That's what sticks out to you.
That's the standard.
Every Friday, Ken would buy everybody Starbucks, and everybody's birthday, he'd get In-N-Out or, sandwiches. And like, this is what stood out to these employees. This is what you're talking to me about. Not like, oh, they demand overtime every week and, oh, the pay really sucks. Like, those aren't issues. If you're celebrating that he buys you Starbucks every Friday, that's what stands out to you. Okay, let's give this a shot.
Well, and I'd stop by and Ken would jump out of his chair. Courtney, come on in. I mean, it just was a very welcoming, family-oriented business. And Ken was just the heart of it. He was a great person, had great business relationships across town, was well respected within the Builders Exchange, and took great care of his employees. Like, he just an authentic human being, like set the standard for who we wanted to be once we got into that same chair. It was terrifying. Like, wow, how did Ken Hamill do this? He made it look so easy.
Very compassionate employer. People first. And then I go work at my next shop, and it isn't that he wasn't a compassionate employer, but very much matched with my aggressive side of my personality. Like, let's do this. Let's go big. Some internal struggle while at my first job where companies established, they don't want to expand. And I'm 24, 25 and very eager and like, let's go buy a laser. Let's go get another truck. We can double our revenue. Let's go for it. And it was very, no, we're comfortable. We're comfortable. We don't need to dominate the world. And then at the second shop I worked for, it was like, that was a wide open door. Sure. How big do you want to get? Let's go for it. And that desire to really push and grow and see how big can we get. That was the first time I went to FabTech, and me and Tim are flying there, and I'm sitting on the plane. I look at him like, what's your plan? What's your goal? What do you want to do? Where's Gerlinger going? And he goes, I don't know. I just know we're not there yet. It's like, wait. You don't have a plan? You don't have a 10-year, 15-year map? And maybe he did, and he chose not to share it to me. But that notion of, I don't know how big we want to get. I just know we're not there yet, and I want to keep going, was a very big departure from Capital Sheet Metal. So we had Bo, and we knew we didn't want, we were always going to go back to Bozeman. We knew we didn't want to raise our kids in California, so we made the decision, all right, let's pick up and move back.
How long had you been at the second job at that point?
2 years.
Okay.
And Courtney got a job offer with the city of Bozeman to go work in the planning department. And so that was kind of the anchor. That was what allowed us to pick up and move back home.
We talk internally at Fulcrum about recipes and how they're super useful. A recipe like consolidates an enormous amount of knowledge. You don't have to know everything about, bread making to understand how to execute a bread recipe. You don't need to know how the laser is manufactured to understand how to, put a nest program in there and actually have it cut a sheet. But in this journey, at some point in time, you go from a recipe executor to a recipe maker.
Mm-hmm.
Was that at the first shop? Was it at the second one? Was it not until you started your business? Throughout this process, had you started to make that transition already?
Being a business owner and starting a business from the ground up is a very, very long recipe list. And so, I'm making up ingredients as we go, and I'm trying a little of this and a little of that. I think every iteration of job through the 7 years we were in Sacramento was understanding additional components of the recipe. And when we got up to Bozeman, it was trying to mash it all together and kind of see what stuck, what fits, what makes sense, what doesn't.
You knew what good culture tasted like.
Yes.
You knew what good execution looked like.
And you had employees. You're going to live and die by your employees. If we don't have good employees and the ability to retain them, don't even try. If you have poor culture, it's not going to turn out well. Those were the things I knew going in, but all the other parts, all the ancillary, which I think a lot of people assume is the biggest part. Oh, I went to school and I got an MBA somewhere. I am now prepared to start a business. No, you're not. You might be prepared to consult a business owner or to guide somebody, but it's such a small portion of it. It's important, but it's such a small portion of the overall success. I think culture is the biggest part. Mm-hmm. So we get back to Bozeman, and I'm working at a shop that's new. They just got a laser. It's a startup, and doesn't feel like a great fit. So I'm only there for a couple of months, and I come home from work one day and I talk to Courtney, and I'm really not feeling this. When we were in Sacramento, when I was at Gerlinger, I'm doing big projects, really exciting, passionate. I love my job. It's super fun. And I'm just not feeling it here. The scale isn't right. The product isn't quite right.
Can I say the quote that he
Sure.
came home, sat at the dining room table, just takes a deep breath and goes, well, I was cladding skyscrapers, doing the Google Bridge. I did bunny lawn ornaments today. And just the weight of that, what am I doing? You could just tell was wearing him down. What did I just do? I decided to leave my dream job. And what am I going to do now?
Did the founder of that company have a vision of where he wanted to take the company that, could have helped you justify the lawn ornaments?
I think so, but my background was much more into manufacturing, and that first job that I had back in Bozeman was architectural metal, right? And so very finite segment of the market. And my philosophy had always been, you've got this massive capital investment. You got a $1.2 million laser. Run it. It doesn't make money holding the concrete to the floor, sitting idle. Run it. You have to sell aggressively and sell it cheap until you can fill up an 8-hour shift. And then you can run overtime, and then you can run a second shift. And now you're in profit margin territory. And it just didn't really align with how I saw opportunities in the market. Bozeman's not big. And so you have an opportunity to capitalize on a market that somebody is going to capitalize on it. So I was there for 3 months and just didn't feel like this isn't going to be quite the right fit. But I was afraid, I got a liability now. I've got a kid, and I need to be financially solvent and, make sure I'm going to put my family first as a priority. And I came home and talked to Courtney about this, and she kind of called me. I was like, okay, if you don't like it, do something else. And when we left Sacramento, I'd been kind of toying with the idea of let's maybe start a business when we get up to Bozeman. This other shop was also brand new, and I kind of, the Bozeman market's not big enough to support 2 brand new fabrication shops. Again, small market, very capital intensive industry. I don't think there's enough work to justify 2 startups. So she kind of called my bluff and okay, if you don't like it, then come up with a plan. So, okay. So Thanksgiving of 2017, put my 2 weeks in and spent the whole month of December, this is my day job now, 40 hours a week. I'm writing a business plan and I'm doing market analysis and coming up with spreadsheets and financials and talking to the SBA and looking at shop space and customer market analysis. It was right around Christmas, I think, when business plan is done and present it to Courtney. Let's go through this. Is this viable? Can we really do this? And establishing startup capital. What are we going to need to get this thing off of the ground? It was terrifying. Put all this work in, all this effort in, and looking at $500,000. We got to find $500,000 to get this thing up and running.
Now, some people would have been like, $500,000? No way. All right, let's go do something else. That wasn't your vibe.
No, I think that's the natural startup for a lot of manufacturing is, I bought a welder. I went and bought a Bridgeport, and I'm making parts in my garage, and I'm comfortable scaling up very slowly and stably with low risk. That's not my personality.
That's mine.
And you'd learned that about him by this point in time.
Oh, yes. Like he had, right out of school, he went and worked with explosives in the oil fields. He'd done zipline design. And that's something early on, we never held each other back, whether it was an internship when we were dating, just go do what makes you happy. And so that was the really hard part when he came home, just kind of like, what am I doing? And knowing his risk history, it was a very strange moment for me, just seeing him that unhappy and seeing him wanting to do more in something that he's very passionate about. I am very risk adverse. I am the analysis paralysis. I need to see everything and I have different scenarios and exit plans. But he came to me even before his business plan and I had absolutely no fear, no hesitation. It was a very strange moment for me. It's like, he's done sales. He knows how to draft. He's been in the shop. He changed the culture of a pretty toxic work environment in a short amount of time. Like he had the magic recipe. And in Bozeman, there's good people. It's a small community and there's a lot of growth opportunities. So it was kind of a great time for him to get started. But I shocked myself with that.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. I did not think she was going to give me the green light.
And he really took it seriously too. And that I think instilled more trust and faith in him because he doesn't tell people, but he did a 3-year projection on the financials. And that was sales, gross revenue, the losses he anticipated, which there was a loss. And when he could justify bringing on employees. And he really, his spreadsheets are beautiful. And he was within 3 to 5% of his projections, which is unheard of. So, and being able to have that business plan to justify to the SBA or any lenders, like, who are you? What's your experience? So he really did a great job rationalizing his plan, being realistic with losses. I think people go in thinking, I'm going to be a business owner, I'm going to make it rich. But no, he had a very realistic approach. He plotted it out. And he just had that drive. It was really exciting to see him just charge it.
What was that business plan review like? Were you grilling him, getting into his every cell of his sheet, making sure that he amortizes costs correctly? Or
she stayed out of the Excel. Like that. Coming out of college, that as an engineer, I got Excel. I'm very comfortable with that.
His math courses had no numbers. Like he's a financial mathematical whiz. Side story, our accountants are always like, we'll get worked up about, having to put a report together or, it's going to be, I don't know, I have to go crunch the numbers. And he'll sit back in his chair and he'll go, it'll be around 73,500. And they'll go crunch numbers and they'll come back and they're like, how did you do that? Like he has always just had a way with numbers. So I stayed out of the spreadsheet and I trusted him with that because he's done estimating and, but it was really kind of fun. We call it our kitchen table discussions. We didn't know the name of the business yet. It was literally just a blank space on the business plan. But what does this look like? Where do we want to open a space? We put together a wife contract at the beginning. So there was the business plan, and then there was kind of the home plan. Like, all right, if you do this, here are the things that need to happen at home. Like, so there was a lot of negotiating at that kitchen table.
Hostile negotiations.
But I love the strategy. We are very different. And it's an amazing balance of how we navigate through life because of risk aversion and fear-based response. But I don't know, it was really fun to do that strategy. We balance each other out well. So
was he within 5 to 10% of the wife plan too?
No. Oh no, no. That was
far.
a very different accuracy rate with that. But again, we didn't know that. We had no idea what we were getting into. I had no idea how fast it would grow, like the stress that would come. And yeah, we were very just kind of blindsided by a few things. So I've recently put together a version 2 of the wife plan. But yeah,
we're still in negotiations on that one.
How long do those contracts last? Are they like up for renewal every 3 years, 5 years?
I think the end clause I said was this contract can be changed at any moment in time with
amended
based on the emotions of said wife, something like that. So I put it very broad, but he was a good sport with it. But that's I seen my family in business and how that just kind of takes over. Sometimes you get lost in it, especially with something he's so passionate about. So it was trying to ensure a nice, healthy balance that he didn't miss out on the young kid phase. So I don't know, we kind of had 2 kids at the same time. That's the way I've looked at it. You know, you have to support and nourish this business in its infancy, same as you do a kid. And no parent gets it right. So it was, those were some hard days in the beginning.
They say that people who create businesses where everything is thought of first before the name have a much higher success rate.
Really?
Yeah, I read that somewhere. So it's interesting that you cared more about how the business would operate than what you're going to call it.
Yeah, the business plan was I'm not a planner. I'm not organized. I'm not detailed. I didn't know where we were going yesterday. I knew I had to get on an airplane and I'm going to Minneapolis, and that was about it. And Courtney's giving me crap. Do we have a hotel? Somebody picking us up at the airport? It's, crap, I should probably know this, shouldn't I? That's not who I am. That's not my personality. But the business plan was a really good forced exercise where I should do this. I think this is the right thing to do.
Was the emotion like reverence to the process, like anxiety? Like what propelled you to go that much out of character?
Fear of failure. That if I'm going to do this, it's probably going to consume a lot of our family's resources, my time, my energy. And if I'm going to commit that level, I need to make sure that I'm prepared adequately for it, which again is very atypical for my personality. So if I'm going to do this, I need to make sure that I plan and put effort in and come up with a game plan like this financial projection spreadsheet. It was a requirement for the SBA. I didn't have it on round 1 of the business plan. And then the SBA comes and they say, well, if we're going to do this, if we're going to give you a check, we need to see what are your financial projections, which I thought was hilarious. You want me to give you projections for a business that doesn't exist? I have no customers, no product. I don't have a shop. I have no employees. Sure, I'll make numbers up. This will be fun. But it was a really cathartic exercise where, okay, I'm going to start with theoretically X dollars in the bank. Where do I spend that money? Okay, laser, brake, a welder or 2. I probably need a truck, a couple of computers. Okay, money's gone. Now what? Okay, now I've got to run everything, and I think I can do it on my own for 2 months, but then I should probably hire a laser operator. And what does that allow me to do with my time? Okay, now I can reinvest time back into sales. Then I can grow it to this point, and then I hire a designer, and then I can grow it to this point, and then I hire a salesperson, then I can grow it to this point, and then a fabricator and this point. And so that spreadsheet was kind of a roadmap for the first 2-3 years where I already know what the plan is. Once I hit X in sales, this is my next hire. Once I hit Y in sales, this is the next hire. So while it sounds really neat to be within 3 to 5% of the financial projections, I made the roadmap and I just followed it. So, self-fulfilling destiny kind of thing. But all of that is very out of character for me. I don't plan very well, which again is a great dynamic between us. Courtney is very analytical, very detailed, very planning, come up with a plan, and then I'm really good at executing on that plan. I'll go do it. Those first couple of years where Courtney was still our financial anchor, the financial safety net, the health insurance safety net of the family, the retirement safety net, all those things. The shop was just this massive financial liability. Some months, maybe it's an asset. And other months, it's a financial liability. I'd go 3, 4, 5 months without not taking a draw. I don't have a paycheck. I'm making sure employees are getting paid and vendors are getting paid and gas is getting in the truck, but there's nothing left to take a draw. So it was really important that Courtney was that safety net for the family, but that also consumed a bunch of her time, So we, like she said, a lot of kitchen table, breakfast table, weekends, nights where, hey, I have a dumb idea. I want to do this. What do you think about it? Help me figure out how to do this. And very involved from the beginning, but very much in the shadows and, weekend warrior work.
Yeah.
So you said earlier that you're a tinkerer, and how you described developing your business plan projections feels like business tinkering.
Mm-hmm.
Had you had exposure to that at
No.
your previous jobs?
Again, little portions of the recipe. I knew how to do estimates. I knew how to do detailing. I knew how to, run the brake. I knew how to run the laser. I knew a lot of the components of it, but I'd never done material purchasing. I had no idea how to do that. Never done any, shipping coordination and logistics. I had very little on the operations side, running departments and HR and legal and setting up a business. How do you reach out to the Secretary of State and get your articles of organization filed, and how do you get an EIN number? And no idea. That's where Courtney's great, right? I don't know these things, and I'd come home and talk about it, and then the next morning we'd wake up and she'd be like, "Okay, here's our articles of organization. Read through it and see if you want to do any edits." And here's the plan to get the EIN number, and we have to go get a commercial bank account as part of this. And, she'd help to fill in a lot of those detail holes that I'd miss.
What I think is advantageous as an architect is I've worked with so many different businesses, firefighters, animal care centers, utility. And so you have this inquisitive nature. And I did some business development, put proposals together, go on interviews. So it was kind of fun. Like he's the mind here. He has all of the technical data. So it's pulling out those nuggets of information that's going to legitimize his plan, putting it in a proposal to show that legitimacy. So it was kind of fun to almost use him as a client and pull out all that information, put it in a pretty proposal. Because I don't know what he knows from a technical standpoint. It's fascinating to hear him talk when he gets to the nuts and bolts of things. But packaging it and really presenting it, business analysis, things like that, market projections. I love doing all that nerdy stuff. I'm not a design architect. I'm a strategist. I'm a planner. I do constructability. I do code review. So it's really the details and how to navigate the procedural process is what I really love to do. So kind of taken that on so he can go be the tinkerer and go do what he loves. And it soothes my fear-based response too. Okay, we have all our ducks in a row. We have insurance. We have a great legal team. Like we got a good banker. So we've lined that all up. Okay, I feel good. Go do what you're best at. So, but yeah, it's a whole nother learning curve when it's your husband and not a client. So, but yeah, it was fun in those early days. It was all hypothetical. So,
did you feel like you were being included in the business or inconvenienced by it, responsible for it?
Depends on the day. I mean, at the beginning, it
All
was
of
like,
the above.
yeah, I was excited to see him take something on he was passionate about. And then as it started to take time away from the family, I worried, man, we decided to have this family and grow our life together. And how is that going to pull away from that? And And at times I'd pull up and, he hired this great group of guys and I'm like, man, they're just having a bunch of fun over here. And I think a big part is I wasn't visibly present. And so a lot of the time it was the owner's wife is here. I don't know what kind is that hot roll, cold roll. I don't know what piece of metal's on the floor. I don't have that technical basis. So getting over either that imposter feeling of myself or the bias of the guys, that was, I think, probably a big challenge. But I don't know, when things got bumpy, Courtney, can you help us? So it was like I put on my cape and it was for a while. I'd have moments of frustration. Like, I'm the janitor. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, we have to do A, B, and C, and you guys deviated. And so those would be the points of tension we'd have. And it's not that Scott was intentionally doing that. It's rapid growth or doing something for the first time. And I'm coming from a very corporate, established business, SOPs, we have it set up. And they're starting to grow and establish process. But I'd get pulled in. One of the pieces of advice we got told very early on is you're not a real business till you have to deal with a lawsuit. And that was, I think, a big, scary one for me the first time we had to have some contractual dispute. And oh gosh, this isn't just some guys having fun in a shop anymore. We're going to be facing these obstacles. And I have my full-time job and my passion for my career. We got kids, and now I've got to kind of do this. So it just felt like competing priorities all the time, and how I felt about it depended on the day. But
so there's some component of like you said, your job is the safety net, but then they need your help, and then you're pulled away from the safety net. But you got to make sure the safety net's there. How did you handle those shifting priorities and the competing tension?
Nights and weekends. I mean, we had our daughter, a year into the business. So I've got a toddler and an infant, and trying to balance a job with maternity leave. And so, I don't know, we just have a high capacity. We just get it done. I mean, it's funny, you'll read all these 7 atomic habits for being proficient. I'm like, yeah, we already do that. So I've just always been a very high proficiency person, but it was hard to not give 120% to a job and a career I love and start to reallocate that. And then just the identity shift as a mom, gosh, yeah, these little kids are here all of a sudden. So as things arose in the shop, it was not having to give a perfectionist performance, and I was not used to that. So I learned to embrace the imperfection of life through that, and you do the best you can, and you learn from when you don't hit the bullseye. So that was hard, but I think it was a good humanizing aspect of what I needed to do in my professional development. But yeah, I got pretty upset. You guys have to stop blindsiding me with stuff. How do we not know about that? And that, again, is a control response. You're never going to know when stuff blindsides you. So again, that's what I love about the dynamic. My life would be organized and planned and probably not nearly as exciting. And Scott brings in just hey, we're doing this, we're going that way. So again, I think I help stabilize him, and he helps me pull out of my comfort zone. So yeah, it's a juggling act. You can never get it right. I don't know how we survived, to be honest. It was terrifying.
Embrace the mess, accept that, those first couple of years, business is brand new. We've got a toddler. Audrey shows up, and then Courtney had an accident and cut her Achilles. And so now my wife is, out of surgery, but bedbound for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Non-load bearing, can't stand on it, can't carry our 5-month-old daughter.
Yeah.
And it's this is a dumpster fire. Oh my God, this is total chaos, but accept what it is. And so, there'd be plenty of times on the weekends where I'm down at the shop trying to get caught up, trying to do something, grow somewhere, get a quote out, get a bid out. And I've got baby Bjorn and Audrey's on the front, and I gave, Bo a little dead blow mallet and he's out in the shop banging something. And it's like, all right, well, he's alive and she's right here. So I can get 30 minutes of work done and embrace it. It's going to be messy. It's going to be. We
would just look at each other at the end of the day and just like, we're haggard, we're tired. And we just look at each other and just start laughing. Like, what are we doing? Like, is this life right now? Like, it goes so fast. You just respond as best you can. But then we'd have these moments of just like, what are we doing here? Like, this is way harder than we ever thought. So yeah, having babies and starting a business at the same time, don't recommend it. 1 out of 5 stars.
Yes.
So you keep saying fast growth, which is a choice. And it's a choice that costs money to grow.
Yeah.
You're not taking a draw sometimes. You're barely filling your gas tank to get to work. You could have chosen to grow a little slower, collect a little cash.
No.
What was your decision process like on choosing that growth? And how did you decide how much was too much growth? How did you know how much you could handle?
I forget how big that first business plan was 70, 75 pages, something like that. And that was a phase 1, right? Year 0 through 5. Phase 2 was 3 pages, highly theoretical, years 5 to 10, and then phase 3 is 10 to 15. So we had the first 15 years of the business already kind of mapped out with a trajectory. Obviously, the further away you get from the start point, details are very light. But I knew what the ultimate goal, the end desire is to be on land that we own. Dirt in Bozeman is incredibly expensive. Rental rates are incredibly high. And this is going to be a big part of our long-term transition plan is to, okay, we own the dirt, we own the building, we own the assets. So if this is a goal we want to work towards, what are the milestones to get there? Okay, we need to get, billing to this point is the goal to be able to justify the ability to purchase. So here's a theoretical number that I established for what yearly gross sales need to be. And then it's, okay, open the floodgates. And now it's a race to get to that point. You can be profitable or you can grow. It's really hard to do both at the same time. And I'm sure there's an MBA out there somewhere that will cringe at this, but I always looked at it like, as long as profit margin isn't 0 or negative, I'm okay with it. I don't care. Profit is not a big concern. Has to be above 0. But I don't care if it's 20% or 25 or 30%. I'm not going to put the effort into building SOP and process and finesse. If we're doing $2 million a year in gross sales, I'm not going to put all this effort to fine tuning that to get a 35% profit margin if next year I want to do 4 million, because that process is probably not going to survive the transition.
Where did you get the intuition that process breaks when your organization scales? Because most people learn that lesson very painfully.
I think I had the idea going in that gross sales is more important. Hit the gross sale and then you can back end. You can refine after that. But it was proven when we're 2 years old and we've outgrown our first shop space is 3,000, 3,500 square feet. You put a laser and a brake into it and it's like, well, we filled that up quick. Crap. We outgrew it the day we turned the lights on. We made it work for a couple of years, but now we've got 12, 15 guys and there is no room. And we're puking out into the driveway. And I got guys welding under an umbrella outside. So we get a second space, a second location. And now our process that worked really well when we were 10 guys in one building and I could turn around and, hey, don't forget to weld that this afternoon and it'd get taken care of. Now that doesn't work, because somebody's 15 miles down the road into a second location. So it was proven that the process that we had that worked at time point A isn't going to work at time point B. We have to iterate. We have to reinvent. We have to improve on the process. And you have to do enough to maintain liquidity and operational capacity. But I didn't want to invest so much to try to finesse that profit margin, because we're probably going to outgrow it again, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
But I think to answer your question on how did he gauge whether or not he could grow, what he's not sharing is that if an opportunity came up, he'd go to his guys and say, hey guys, we got this job. We've never taken on something this big. What do you think? And that's the kind of team aspect he leads. It's the we, not me. And I mean, these guys would kind of get wide-eyed and like, yeah, we can try. And just like that buy-in that he got with those opportunities. They weren't blindsided with forced overtime or just what's coming. I mean, that's always happening sometimes, but on these big leaps, he'd pull in his people and say, I want to do something kind of stupid. You guys up for it? And they go, sure. Like,
I got a bad idea.
So we talk about like the phases of a business. There's the cult, there's the growth, there's the enterprise, and then hopefully a graceful end to a business. And that cult, like he just did a great job of bringing people in and selling what his dream was, where he wanted to go, and hook, line, and sinker, they bought it. And we have quite a few of those early folks still here. I asked them before we left, I'm like, why are you guys still here? Like, what's kept you around? Like, do we need to do a psych eval or there's some screws loose? And they just said, no, we love that there's growth. We love to see where this is going, what opportunities you guys are going to bring. It's not the same widget day in, day out. There's no monotony. And they just said, you guys offer a lot. And Montana offers a lot, and just the ability to have diversity in the work, but also the ability to specialize too. So it was kind of just interesting to get that perspective from them. We've never really stopped to ask, what's kept you guys around? Like, so he's just had a few great people that probably maybe they shouldn't be giving you that, yeah, let's do it, but they did. And then they were shoulder to shoulder. And that's what I loved about Scott. He was never sitting in an office. He'd go out and help.
I would try, and they'd chase me back into the office. Like, we're tired of fixing your welds. Go sit down. Go play Tetris or something. Get out of here.
Yeah, but very much when we hire people, we say, I'll go out and sweep the shop. I'll go break down boxes. Like, it's very much a team aspect. So our office people are support to the shop. It's our focus is the shop. How can we best support them? But he set that from day one, giving people a choice to take on the next big leap in the business. And I think that's a huge key of his success, his ability to find the people that are looking in a team aspect. They're not looking to glorify themselves or substantiate themselves from the pack. Like, it really was a great core group of people he found at the beginning. And you could walk into the shop and it was such a fun environment. Like, you'd feel the energy. People believed what they were doing, what they were helping build. And so taking that small startup energy and growing it, that's been an interesting, the scalability of that has been hard. How do we instill that when you have 60 people? Like, it's a very different atmosphere now. But
so one of the things that doesn't scale well is culture and people. The transition from 1 to 8 is hard in its own way, but from 8 to 60 is really difficult for almost every company. Mm-hmm. Most people that I talk to describe some form of things falling apart, some existential crisis from how the team works. Did you have one of those? Did you escape it? How did it feel if you had one?
I don't think existential, but if you have strong culture, new people will adopt to the culture. If you have weak culture, the culture will adopt to new people. And our OG shop, we call it, the original shop, it was incredibly strong, very shoulder to shoulder. Our outside salesman would jump out and he'd help weld, he'd help polish, he'd help clean weld, he'd help wrap product and put it on the truck.
They chase him back into the office too.
Yeah, they chase him away too. But like, everybody would jump in shoulder to shoulder, that startup mode, that cult mentality of, no, we're all going to do this together. And then now you got 2 buildings, now you got 3 buildings. And how do you get that very critically important shoulder to shoulder startup aspect to translate between facilities, translate between new teams? You got new shop that starts up, and now you got maybe 1 or 2 people in there that, I remember what it used to be like. And
they're in the minority now.
Now they're in the minority, and you got 10 brand new people. And how do you get that culture to survive and flourish? I don't think it was existential, but I think we identified from day one when we got into multiple facilities, like, okay, I got to put a date on the calendar. I cannot wait until we get everybody back under the same roof, because it's way easier to manage that. And support who do we want to be, who are we. But I think the recipe to success is I can't be the only cultural icon. I can't be the only person that is breathing life into this. And we were very, very strategic. Like Courtney said, those first 8, 9, 10 guys that we hired they are the cornerstones to it. They know who we are and who we want to be, and they are the cultural icons. They are the ones where I don't have to be there every day. I don't even have to be in the same building. They're going to help to carry it, and they're going to help to breathe life into it and make sure that the new people that are coming in can be a part of this. And it's going to change as you get new personalities and new types of work. It's going to change and morph a little bit, but I think we're still very honest and true to our original. Who are we? What do we want to be? Scrappy, startup, aggressive. We're going to go for swing big, right? Step up to the plate and swing, and accept you're going to get a foul ball. You're going to strike out from time to time, but I want swingers. I want people who are going to go to the plate and try.
I think one of the challenges was going from 1 location to 2 and then 3, because he was that anchor from a cultural standpoint. But what it also did was starting to create factions in the business. Oh, the OG shop's the best. Oh, Belgrade doesn't know what they're doing. Belgrade's just started. We put a shop manager in there with no budget, no guys. Here, get all this work done. So I started to see the factions and then all the office people. And I said, this really departures from what we're trying to do as a business. And Scott was putting hundreds of miles on his truck, just ping-ponging. So that was a growth struggle, I think. And now that we're starting to bring people back in, you have people that don't know other team members' names. So, but again, trying to bring people together, Scott had a really good approach with that. We started kind of doing a lessons learned after a project, what went well, what didn't. And you could feel the animosity building up between these people, like, the office people. And it wasn't a person that you sat next to. So you kind of lost the humanity behind it, and the frustration of something not going well really built up. I'll let you tell the story of what he did to break that down.
About $1,000 worth of Nerf guns. Highly recommended. Amazon flagged it as a fraudulent purchase. Assumed my 8-year-old bought it. But my idea was, if you can, me included, if you can light me up in the face with a Nerf dart from 10 feet away, and then we sit down for a meeting, like, give me criticism. Tell me, what can I do better? And I'm going to tell you what you can do better. But let's break that barrier of ice. Let's break through that ego. Have fun. Go nuts for 10 minutes, and then let's sit down and work through the solution.
Yeah. The field guys, you could just feel the angst in the room when people came up. Everyone's sitting back with their arms crossed, and then Scott brings out these Nerf guns, and then everyone's going, what is he doing now? You could just see the uh-oh. And then they were running around giggling, 8-year-old boys in the office. And then they kind of all right, we're here with the intent of finding a solution. If you focus on the problem gets bigger. If you focus on the solution, that gets better. So it was a really fun way to just see the surprise on everyone. And now everyone walks around with Nerf guns in our shop. So it still looks like just a big boy toy factory. But it was a really amazing way to break down those barriers for people that don't work next to each other during the day. So, and then we integrated technology just from a communication standpoint. We went from talking to each other, and then people were texting or calling, and that became a very siloed approach to problems. And so that's something I started to see with the different locations. The success of any business is the rate at which communication happens. And we had communication problems. We had location problems. We're trying to take on new scope, new customers. So we went from sticky notes to trying to digitize. Let's do chats, guys. Let's start to talk about these things. And I got a lot of resistance from that. No, we don't do that. It's taking that cult mentality of just no, we got this. And then trying to get employees to see the growth trajectory that we're looking at. Those were the challenges with not being co-located and trying to grow a business. So,
and at this stage, you're still nights and weekends owner's wife?
Oh God. I mean, that's the hard part for me, because I feel like I've been there. I know everything. I hear everything that happened in the day. I'm just not present. So as he's bringing these problems to me, I mean, that's me. I'm the strategist. How can we fix this? What can we do? You want to do what in 5 years? So I'm trying to chart out what we can do now, that we're not just totally blindsiding or whiplashing our employees with process change and process fatigue. So at times, I know they felt that. We made a change from Google to Office. And it was so hard on people. But we have to make some of these hard decisions now in order to go where he is wanting. So I say he's the dreamer, and I have to try to chart the course. So there was some hard lessons in just that growth trajectory. I don't know if we're enterprise yet. I feel like we're at that knuckle between growth and enterprise, but each corner we took, I felt like I was the catalyst for, or the one to blame at times. Like, oh, Courtney and her process, here she comes, messing up what we got, our boys club. So that wasn't a fun role to take, and I still feel like I take the role of trying to establish those things that we need to get where he's going. So Scott does a really great job on messaging the why and really bringing guys along with his vision. He's the people person. I'm the process person. So again, we haven't done it well at times. We're learning on how to implement and communicate to our employees. And that gets harder with 60 people too. So
where did you learn the lesson that communication is the constraint? Most of the time, smaller shops think it's a job cost report or tinkering with something in the financials or moving a machine around. But I think, at least as I've discovered manufacturing, coordination, communication is incredibly important. But how did you guys learn that?
I had a moment with our one shop manager. So when we had our second location, we split and had 2 shop managers. And I always loved just going and talking. They were kind of the original guys. And, hey, Pete, how's it going? And he is always like, we're good. We got this. He just has a very calm approach. And I was like, how you really doing, Pete? And he's like, it's been a tough week. And I go, tell me why. He's like, I'm not sleeping. Why aren't you sleeping? I just have all these things in my head. I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, he's got sticky notes all over his monitor. And I said, you're trying to keep track of all of that through sticky notes and while also directing operations on a shop floor. And I just saw the fatigue it was taking from him, someone that we really cared about and trusted in a leadership position. And I just thought, like, that's not fair to him. Like, we can do better for him and everybody else. So that was the moment that I was like, we got to make a change now, because he's not going to last. No one is going to be able to last with that kind of pressure and that mental gymnastics. What we do is very complicated. And there's a lot of steps from quoting it to getting things through the shop floor and delivery. And to have one person try to keep track of 30, 40 jobs at a time, like, that's too much to ask of anybody. And so I saw the effect it had on people, and I could start to see the frustration and the fatigue. So I remember that day so crisply and clearly, and just taking care of people. I'm sure there was downstream effects that he was seeing from customers and jobs not getting on time, but I saw the effect on someone we cared about.
Well, and one of the really difficult parts is, when do you implement? When do you launch this? Your question, when did we learn that, the rate at which communication travels is going to be linearly proportionate to how well your business does? Jack Lose. It was 15, 20 years ago. One of our friends from college got married, and his dad owns a truss plant in northern Washington. And his dad, we were talking, and his dad's like, "Oh yeah, it's great. We just put TVs out on the plant floor so that guys can see the jobs digitally." And he made a comment like, "Yeah, when we did that, and they were no longer relying on paper job travelers, work orders, job packets, whatever, and everybody had access to the same information digitally." He's like, "That was night and day." And I logged that in my head somewhere, but then we fast forward to seeing Pete with all these sticky notes, and it's like, okay, now it's real life. Now it's right in front of our face. But to have to tell somebody like, "Pete, this is a problem. I have the solution, but I'm not going to roll it out right now, because before I implement the product, the software, the technology, the process, the whatever. I actually have to go hire another person over here to help support this. And then we have to give that person 3, 4, 6 months to train and get caught up. And then we can launch this new process. And then we should expect another 3 months to iterate on it. So it'll get better in a year. It really sucks to have to tell somebody that, but we've also multiple times, premature launch. You try to implement something too soon when who has capacity to carry this new process or technology or document or whatever it is, whatever you're rolling out, who has capacity to carry this? Nobody? Okay, we talk about it, we say we're going to launch it, and we throw it out into the world, but there's nobody that's got enough free capacity to I'm going to own this. I'll take it. I'll carry it forward and make sure that it's being implemented and utilized and adhered to. And that's really demoralizing and demotivating for your team when I thought we fixed it, but we're still having the same issue. It's hard to balance that, when you identify something, but we got to fix A, B, and C before we can really roll out D. And like Courtney said too, we're multifaceted. We do industrial manufacturing, we do structural, we do architectural subcontracting, we do all sorts of different things. And so you've got to make sure that what we roll out for Department A doesn't have a negative consequence for Department B or isn't going to impact them. Or if it is, what do we think? What kind of impact is it going to have? And can we get ahead of it? Can we mitigate something? Do we need to tweak or refine some part of this process? It's very convoluted.
Well, it seems like you still have the whole architectural system for your business in your head.
Yeah.
Any thoughts or plans on when the business gets so large that it can't all fit in your head anymore?
We're there.
Yeah,
we're there. That's this rampant growth. I think a lot of companies will, again, if they start small and scale, I'm going to go buy a mill and I'm going to run it here. Very, very low, gradual, positive trajectory. But we were shot straight up. And then you get these little plateau opportunities where you can take a breather. We can take a quarter. We're not going to really increase too much over the next quarter so that we can hire to backfill and try to offload. I can't carry everything in my head. I forget if it was December of 21. I think it was December 2021, maybe 22. It all blends together now. Kids are out of school for Christmas break, and we schedule really light over that, 2 weeks between Christmas and New Year's. And my phone's ringing, 100, 120 calls a day, emails, text messages. Most of my day is spent calling back people who called when I was already on the phone with somebody else. And I'm coming home talking to Courtney I can't keep doing this. I'm running ragged. I got 3 facilities. I'm driving in triangles all day long. And I'm just 12 hours a day of trying to communicate and be that conveyor of information. Sure. And Courtney was the one that helped me realize I can't be, I've got this assumption that I should know it all. This is my business. I should be that guy. I should have the answer for everybody. But I'm doing a disservice to my company by not empowering middle management, shop managers, production managers, salespeople. If I'm not empowering them to know what the plan is and this is how I want you to fit into it and how to operate, the business isn't going to grow. So that was a really critical period of time where I can't be and I shouldn't be the knower of everything. If I have a problem or a question, I call Scott because I'm going to be the bottleneck of information. So it's been a couple of years of trying to do some quiet, strategic pause points where we can give individuals enough time. All right, you got a couple of months before I go do something stupid and sign another big contract and then we grow again. You got a couple of months, so reinforce your team. Or if you have questions about processes or something that we collectively need to sit down and think about and fix and iterate on. It's been a lot of intentional, okay, we got to take a little break, take a breather, make sure that we reinforce this department before we jump again.
Well, I saw him kind of being hijacked by the business. At a point, it was fun. He was involved. And then his capacity with phone calls and contracts. And it got to a point of, we didn't travel. I mean, COVID was convenient for him because nobody was traveling. But then it got to a point of, he didn't feel like he could leave. He didn't have the people there that knew what he knew. And so it kept us as a family from doing a lot of things. And even, he'd be home, but then the phone would ring. So he's not really home. And I could see he's checking his phone at dinner and looking at me, trying not to feel like a bad dad or get in trouble with the wife, but I got to take this call. And so it was hard for me to see him in that spot. It wasn't fun at that moment. And so it was, how do you continue to grow this business successfully with you doing it all? And so that was kind of another strategic move, that we had to start to create divisions and people become centers of excellence. And how can we empower them? And what tools do they need? What people do they need? So Scott says it well. He goes, people, process, or tool. And so I think looking back at the history, we've never done any new move well. It's always been a stumble. And so just messaging that to employees like, hey, we're going to do this. Here's the why.
It's going
to
be messy.
Intent. It's not going to go well. And that's okay. But yeah, starting to see him kind of elevate himself to being more of the CEO. We used an analogy with our team. We said, guys, we've built a bus. All right. We're all in the bus. We've built it. Now we're driving. And we need you guys to drive the bus because Scott and I have to be building the road ahead. We have just been building this bus, trying to get people on it, trying to get it working. It's working. We're down the road, but we can't be driving and building road and laying track. And so it was fun to see people step into leadership roles and have that nervous energy with it. And like, oh gosh, it's on me now. So in helping support them in those new roles, because we've hired great people, like people we trust and don't have any experience in the roles they're in. But that's where Scott's great. He's like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing either. Like, we're going to figure it out together. So just giving them the acceptance that you don't have to do it perfectly. It's going to go wrong. We're going to learn from it. And so we just have the most amazing people in critical spots. And I think that gives him the trust to step away. So it's just been in the last year and a half that we've been able to take family trips and he's not on his phone.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel starting this journey of reducing your span of influence and control and delegating large chunks of the business, doing the brain surgery of offloading things from your head and still getting the information you need? Mm-hmm. You want to go fast, right? Which means you got to know stuff. Like, how did that feel for you?
Messy, really messy. Like you said, I want to offload from the operational standpoint. I can't be there to make every decision of, is this a good quote or not? Do we have enough material and inventory? But accessibility to the information. I think that was the biggest missing component. I don't sleep much. I don't sleep well. I'm always sleuthing through emails. CC me on emails. You might never get a response from me, but I'm going to sit through and read through, 40 or 50 emails at night before I go to bed and just get caught up on what the entire team has done that day. Once we got to the point of having a legitimate ERP, sweet, now I can go through and start to see what did sales do today? How many quotes went out? Do we have enough material? I know we're looking at this really big contract. How are we sitting on inventory? Having accessibility to accurate information was the big piece that allowed me to really feel comfortable stepping back. Because now if there is an issue, I'm going to find out about it at 1:30 in the morning, and then I'm going to shoot myself a note. I'm going to go talk to Chuck about this tomorrow. We're going to go look at this quote, this job is falling behind. It was supposed to ship today, but it doesn't look like it's off the laser yet. So I'm going to go poke at this tomorrow and see what's up with this project.
He used the analogy a lot. It's like handing over a newborn.
Yeah.
I've taken care of this business. I've made sure it's well fed, good sleep. I've nurtured it as if it's my own. And then you leave it with a babysitter. And so he would be the worst kind of parent to leave with a babysitter.
Calling every 20 minutes. let me talk to the baby.
Yeah. So, and that was a really great management cusp for us and seeing who would follow directions and communicating. There'd be some people like, oh, I'm just going to protect Scott and I'll handle it.
Yeah.
And then there'd be this huge dumpster fire and we get the blind side of it, whether it's legal, financial, production. And so I do want to know everything. And the people that would kind of take advantage of that power vacuum too. Like, I got this, I'm going to make the decisions. And like, no, this is still Scott. Scott gets to make those decisions. So we reference impact players a lot. Who's going to step up when needed, but know when to step back? Who's going to make heavy work light? And through each iteration of process change or Scott trying to step out, we've seen the people that we trust to do what we would do in their same position, or at least learn. When they fail, you can tell these guys feel bad. I'm so sorry. And Scott's so forgiving. He goes, did you learn something from it? Great. It's a success in that way. So it's been fun to see not only the growth of us and the business, but the employees as those things happen. But that communication, over-communicate, really think about it, not just yourself, but how does this affect downstream? So it's been interesting. He now will leave the business alone and turn off his phone for maybe 2 hours. Like that's as much as I think we get.
That's fair. Yeah. Not 2 hours. It's probably. No, I think we've done a couple of vacations now where like, I'm gone. Phone's off. You can text me. You could send me an email. I might get it. I might not. Let me know if the shop's on fire or somebody's missing an arm. If it's something big, let me know. But otherwise, I trust you guys. You're going to take care of it. And maybe there will be a little mopping up to do, a little cleanup, but you're going to survive a week or two. And
the team we have now has done that very well.
Yes.
They reached out to us spring break with the kids, and you could tell they felt so bad. Like, we're so sorry, but we think we have to talk to you guys. And I'm glad they did. And we said, no, you guys did exactly what you wanted. So seeing that growth and progression and having us involved when needed, but not everybody goes to Scott, because I think people miss that. The early days, 12 people, everybody got a piece of Scott. Scott would ask how their family is, when's the baby due, when they get the new dirt bike. And I think that was a really hard thing for Scott to kind of not have those same personal touches with employees and really be disciplined in where does he need to be. I don't need to be going through the purchase orders of the inventory, but hey, I do need to know which contract we're choosing. And so becoming a real big boy in the job, the real CEO, but he still goes around on the scooter, buzzes through the shop, and he still loves just, how you doing? What's going on? So it's more balanced, I think, now, because he would not have survived if he kept the same touch points in those year 1, year 2. Now going on year 7, he would have burnt out.
Oh, I think I would have survived, but it wouldn't have been pleasant, and the business wouldn't be where it is now. We'd still be at that. I don't know. What do you think you can safely, efficiently manage? 10, 12, maybe 15?
Yeah.
While remaining effective. But above that, something's going to fall. Somebody's going to not get the information they need. And you're going to miss a contract, miss a deadline, miss an opportunity to progress and to grow. So I think if I had maintained that level of involvement, we wouldn't be where we are today. It had to happen. I'm enjoying it. I'm very much liking not having to be there for every decision and every move. But again, having the accessibility to the information where I can go look and see from a high level, okay, we're fine. We're good. Everyone is doing their job. And if they aren't, I can see it and focus my attention there.
So there's this, statue of a guy chiseling himself, right? That there's this concept that you changing yourself is what allows the business to change. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are really defensive or resistant to change. Their ego has an identity that looks a certain way within their business. But what I'm hearing is that at every phase change in your business, you've been cajoled into it or stumbled upon it yourself and been willing to change. Because I think a lot of people get to the point where they understand they have to change, but very few people do.
Right.
Why are you different?
I think a lot of credit does belong to Courtney on that. I don't I will sit and wallow in misery and stress and anxiety, and I'm very much a doer, right? So if I'm busy, if I'm active, if I'm pulling a 16-hour day, my brain equates that to like, well, I'm doing something. I don't know what it is, but I'm doing something, and a lot of it. And I think Courtney will see from the outside that, oh, you're really not enjoying this, or this isn't tenable, you're going to burn out. And she'll kind of help to poke and prod and ask the right questions that will get my mind to, oh, yeah, you're right.
It's not gentle and it's not a poke. It's
hit over the head with a 2x4. But, oh, you're right. I cannot be the knower of everything. That was an assumption that I had. I started this. I know everything about how I want to quote, how we want to sell, who our vendors should be, how we should run the laser. I made all those rules and plans and process. I know all of this. This is my job. I'm failing my business. And she was the one that helped me to kind of, no, you got to change your mindset. You can't be, and you need to change the idea that you should. It doesn't come from in here. She beats it into me.
Well, it's a hard transition from an employee to an employer. It's a very big mind shift, and you get into the busyness of the day-to-day operations, and you think that this is the way it's going to be. I'm going to keep going. And to have me just have some distance and go, you got to change it. That's the freedom of owning your own business. If something doesn't work, you get to make those hard decisions, and you have to then hold the repercussions as your responsibility. So it's not fun. It's not easy. You really have to weigh those decisions, but the freedom in making those changes is all on you. So it's been fun to that's the strategy part. You want to be where in 10 years? You got a few things. What are the steps that you need to do in order to get there? So he came to me, I don't know, maybe I'm just a mind ninja, maybe all wives are, but he's too close to the problem. And it was within the first year, and I could just tell. I mean, he's like, this isn't going well, and just kind of Eeyoreing his way through lunch, and I'm just quietly eating like, okay, get it all out. And I look at him and I go, you should quit. And he reeled and he goes, I'm not doing that. And I go, well, you're just complaining. What are you going to do about it? I go, you should just quit. You don't have the mindset right now to do this. And I knew if he heard me say that, he'd be like, forget you. I'm going this way. I got this. So it was this little mind ninja trick. Like, you sound like you want to give up. You should do that. And I've
been outmaneuvered many times mentally. Never see it coming.
But I don't know. It's a very hard change going from employee to employer. A lot of people think, oh, I get to do what I want and the freedom. Yeah. But those decisions are really hard to make. And I never knew and understood that as an employee. I remember thinking, why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? It'd be so easy. And it's really humbled me to see the time it takes to change, the time to establish culture, the time to become proficient with things. You really have to have the right people with the right mindset. And without that, growth is not going to happen. So he's done a great job with the people aspect. I don't think anybody could be successful with his growth without the people he has behind him.
All right, so this is a time capsule now. Mm-hmm. You're going to watch this in the future. What message do you have for future you?
Don't forget why I'm doing it. I got a little sticky note on my desk next to the kid pictures and wedding pictures, and do it for them. This is the original goal when we sat down. Okay, what do we want the business to be? What do we want it to do? What impact do we want it to have on our life? The goal is freedom, but there have been a lot of times over the last 6.5 years where this comes with handcuffs, shackles. Got 60 other families to think about now, and 60 other employees and mortgages and paychecks and vacations. And I need to make sure that everything is there for them, but not losing sight of the original intent of doing this was for freedom, to be able to spend time with my kids and have the ability to, nope, we're going to go on vacation. I won't be here. nope, I'm going to leave early on Wednesdays to go do hockey practice with my kid. Nope, it's Audrey's birthday. I'm not going to be here on Friday. We're going to make sure that she gets a whole day to all to herself. It's a good question. I've never thought of what would I tell future self. I've thought a lot about what would I tell my past self. Don't do it, idiot.
I think for me, it's let go of fear. Things will go wrong. I think I overthought everything that could go wrong, and that makes a good strategist at times, but it cripples you from making those hard decisions, stops you from having the hard conversations, stops you from growing and seeing, man, Scott's just charging this. And it's because he's risk adverse, because he has also been very strategic in the risks that he takes. I wish I didn't let fear take away some of the joy of that growth. The human aspect, the HR aspect, I wish we made harder decisions earlier. And I wish I listened to my intuition more. I've always been right, and I've doubted or delayed those decisions, and I've regretted it when I haven't listened to my intuition with things. So I don't know, the future selves, I hope they look back and think like, wow, those dumb idiots did it. But I hope we don't lose the sight of our family, our relationship, and our employees. Like it's maintaining balance, I think, is the name of the game. You have to have it, or you lose yourself in it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. You figured out a million things in 6 years that take many people decades to learn. So congratulations. And thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. It's been great to be here.
Thanks for having us.